what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Amplify Our Advocacy, a podcast brought to you by Youth Advocates for Change. And today we're going to be talking about, advocacy, specifically in STEM, and tech advocacy, positive tech advocacy. And I have here, pretty cool, dope people representing. So this is actually pretty dope. We have full house. So I want you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves. I won't, introduce you guys for yourself. So go ahead, tell us, who you are, just a little bit about yourselves, and where you're from too, because some people are from out of the U.S. So go ahead. Anyone can go whatever order you want to go.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi guys, I'm Sahar, and I am 18. I am from India, and I'm currently residing in the United States. And how do we know each other? Well, I know Bea through WiTech, and Josh through WiTech too, and a whole lot of political rants in our DMs. And so I just moved recently from the States, and I'm a computer science major. So.
Oh.
Okay, I can go next. Hi everyone, I'm Bea. I use she, they pronouns. I'm 19 years old. I'm Filipina and a bit Chinese. I was born in California but raised in the Philippines. But I live in California now because I'm studying here for college. And I know Josh and Sahar because we're all executive team members of WiTech California. Yeah.
And I can go next. So I'm Stephanie Sue. I'm a 17-year-old high school senior, born and raised in the Bay Area. I serve as the lead director of Superposition. Though I haven't met anyone on this podcast yet, I'm so excited to have this conversation with all of you.
That's dope. Well, thank you guys for coming. It's pretty cool to have all of you guys here, and hopefully we can all learn some things and learn from each other. So, first question, let's start from the beginning, your journeys. What were a few, events or inspirations behind your tech interests? Or when did you guys know you wanted to be immersed in the tech world? We can go any order you want, the order that we started. So,
Okay, so if you're going with that order, I'll say that my tech interest is, kind of recent. I've been doing programming for 6 or 7 months now, and my father is the biggest factor who got me into the field, and he just introduced me to the field. I wanted to go into astrophysics before this, and he kind of immersed me into that world of programming, and I immediately fell in love with coding and developed a passion for it. So I decided that I wanted to major in this field and use my privilege as to help other people when I hit this first initial plateau with coding, and I was able to overcome it, and then I fell in love with coding even more. So I just thought that I can help other people fight that initial plateau and just overcome it, because I see that not many people are encouraged to do so, especially women. So that's why I got into tech advocacy, and as a computer science major, just wanted to get into that field.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go next. So actually, I had almost no interest in pursuing tech education in college until after I joined WiTech in 2018, WiTech Manila, because WiTech California didn't exist yet. Yeah. And I really only joined WiTech because I was friends with Audrey, who, if you don't know, is the founder and executive director of WiTech. And she was looking for new members for her marketing team's creatives department to make publication materials to promote WiTech's projects and research. But being surrounded by so many students who were passionate about tech made me realize how important tech is, even to someone like me who wants to pursue an artistic career. And I've been a digital artist since I was 10, but it really only hit me after joining WiTech that digital art cannot exist without technology.
Amen.
And even if I don't want to pursue a tech-related career, like a conventional tech-related career, it only made sense to me that I should learn more about the tech that I rely on every day. So WiTech also inspired me to learn how to program. So I'm a cinema and digital media major, which is a fancy way of saying film and games. But as a college freshman, I took my first ever Python class, and I even decided to pursue a minor in computer science because WiTech inspired me to do that. Yeah. So long story short, I actually joined WiTech with no interest in tech education, but being part of WiTech ignited my passion to promote tech accessibility and literacy, and also personally learn more about tech. Yeah.
That's cool.
I have a bit of a different story. So I come from a family of software engineers. My parents used to be software engineers, and my two siblings are currently working in tech. So STEM has been a really big part of my life. I'm also from the Bay Area, and since we're near Silicon Valley, technology's played such a big role around here. So I started getting interested in STEM in 3rd grade with competitive math. And from 3rd through 8th grade, I was doing competitive math, and I loved the problem-solving creative aspect of it. In 6th grade, I started picking up programming by taking a Python class. I actually built my own version of Flappy Bird, except instead of a bird, it was a ball. And it was really bad. It was still really fun, though. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then I continued doing CS and math all the way through high school. But then I more so focused on CS because I realized with math, you can't really build that much. Like, you can solve some problems on some paper and you can punch numbers into a calculator, but it's not nearly as rewarding as building a program and seeing it be able to come to life. I'm also really passionate about technology because it's incredibly interdisciplinary. I really love graphic design, and I'm able to do that through web development, whereas I don't get that same creative freedom with other STEM fields. I also noticed while I was taking these STEM classes that I was often the only girl in the room, but I wanted to make sure that other girls didn't have to experience the same isolation that I did, which motivated me to join organizations like Superposition and promote diversity in STEM.
Wow, see, man, you guys are so dope. Very talented. And specifically any events that you guys attended or even saw that really ignited your advocacy, because I know Sahar and I were talking about some events that inspired her, but you can go ahead and just maybe talk about a specific event or someone or person that was there with you in your journey that either helped you or pushed you to further go into tech.
I would say that, okay, so there were like a couple of things. First of all, like I said, that my father actually helped me and pushed me into that field. Secondly, there was this one web development slash basically an HTML/CSS class that I taught with Meha and our executive director, by the way, for WiTech California. So I taught that class with her, and I saw how many people and the youth was really interested in learning. And I saw so many people, so many kids, they were so keen to learn more about HTML and CSS, and I was also teaching Python, so they were interested in learning both front end and back end development. Like, I know students who were taking like 6 hours worth of class during our summer vacation. So it was so cool to see like how many students were interested in the field. And then I saw that young girls were also coming to me and they were asking questions. And then when I saw their final projects, we had to build like this website about themselves, and they went from absolute zero and they made like really cool web pages, and it was so rewarding to see. Yeah, exactly. It was so cool to see that these people who have basically had no experience with programming, they're learning so fast. They're so keen to learn stuff. So that, that incident in particular really got to me. And I was like, you know what, I have to help more people. Like, I have to learn this. And during that time, even I wasn't that good with programming and stuff. I hadn't formally learned programming at all. So I was like, I have to get good at this. And then I need to help other people and other girls realize the potential that they have in this field, because it was just so rewarding to see their final projects. And yeah, that was like one of the major reasons I had this shift from astrophysics to technology.
So I'm pretty new to conventional STEM, so there's not like I haven't attended a lot of workshops really about STEM. But I guess the biggest person who's the reason why I'm so into tech advocacy is definitely Audrey, because if I didn't know her, I wouldn't have joined WiTech. And yeah, so there's that. But I guess what got me really immersed into doing tech personally, like as a potential career, is that, well, I joined my first Python class in college just out of curiosity and interest, I guess, because it was an intro to programming class and they just so happened to teach Python. And originally I was really, really intimidated because it was, you know how college is, they're like really big lectures and Yeah, and everyone already seems to know what's going on.
Yeah.
The professor just dives in and starts talking about all these terms, and I'm like, I have no idea what these things mean. Like, what is a script? What is a variable? I only know math variables, but like stuff like that. So it was really intimidating, but throughout the course that I took, it was really interesting to see that all of these words that I type out can produce a game. And like at the time, the only games that we made were things in the terminal, like no graphics whatsoever, just maybe like tic-tac-toe with literal lines or X's and O's, like not pictures of, but like the letters X's and O's. But still, it was really interesting to see that I could make those sort of things, having only learned Python for the first time at that class. Like, if I could learn this much, like make a working game, not pretty, but working in 3 months, then what more if I continue pursuing this education for a longer period of time? And I think, and also to me, like, I really thought that coding games was hard, I guess. Like, you think it's so otherworldly or like it's magical or something. Like, how do you make something that's this extravagant? Like, especially somebody who likes playing games. Like, I think about all the hard work that probably goes into programming different paths of choose your own adventure games, for example. But then taking these classes made me realize that it's actually possible. Like, it's not something that only experts can do. Like, it's something that I could probably do in maybe like a year or two's time. And I wanted other people to realize that as well. Like, it's not an impossible dream to want to be able to make a game or program something as complex as the technology that we use every day with a little hard work. Yeah.
That's dope, Bea.
Though my main advocacy is tech, and that's what the field I'm going into, my biggest inspiration actually came from my math teacher in 8th grade. So in my 8th grade competitive math class, there were only 2 females in the room. It was me and my teacher. And sometimes I felt out of place because none of the guys would talk to me. So I went through that entire 8-week process of just staying on my phone during break and not talking to anybody. But after many weeks of preparation for the day had finally come, it was time to take the test. And somehow, out of 100,000 other students, I was one of the perfect scorers. There were only 268 perfect scores that year, and only 39 were girls. So it was incredibly surprising to me that I was one of them. And then my math teacher congratulated me with an MIT sticker, a gift card, an encouraging note that I still keep with me. It was, keep up your big passion, dream big, then act. She was one of the first teachers to truly inspire me in STEM, and sometimes she felt overshadowed by her husband's MIT degree and the fact that some parents wanted her husband to teach a class instead of her. But thanks to role models like her, I became even more passionate about keeping up my dreams and then acting upon them, which is kind of what led me to Superposition, because just the next year I attended Superposition 2. It was the Bay Area's largest all-women non-binary hackathon. And going in, I didn't have extremely high expectations. I didn't know what to expect. But I walked out with one of the most empowering experiences I've ever had, because never before have I seen so many girls who were interested in stuff just like me, and not just tech, but they were also shopping online, drinking milk tea. And I truly felt that I could belong, and I really wanted to be a part of that mission.
That's so cool. Man, I like how you shouted out your teacher. Shout out to your teacher. That's pretty cool. She really kept the flame going. And this is really cool because it's special that we could get different points of views from this. So Sahar and I talked about this last time, tech representation in India, Sahar, and then also tech representation in the Philippines and in the US. So we can get all, it's pretty cool. We can get all points of views. So the question would be like, is there the same issues in the tech industry in this country and also your respective countries, or are there different issues there? Or is it always just lack of representation, or is there lack of representation in other things? So maybe, Sahar, because like for some people that might not know, the issues regarding tech representation in India, maybe you can explain that or some problems they face.
Okay, so a good thing to know is that I was born and raised in India, and I've attended schools in India till like 9th grade. So, and I went to an all-girls school, okay? So it wasn't a co-ed or anything, it was an all-girls school. And the issue that I saw, even if it was an all-girls school, still we were not exposed to that STEM field. Like it was it was like you have to do something. Like we were exposed to the STEM field, like we had physics, math, chem, and all that stuff. But the thing is that it was more of like you work and you get good grades. It was literally just about grades. There was nothing about, technology and figuring out your passion. If you really have a passion for this thing, it was more like memorize these formulas. Here's what's going to be on the syllabus, and you get good grades on the test. And I feel like that's like this mentality that a lot of females carry in India, that it's mostly about grades. It's nothing else. It's just grades. And this is why I feel like they do not discover that passion for themselves, especially the thing that I witnessed in my school and for me as well. So one of them is this thing, and I was like I'm gonna say this from a privileged point of view. Like in India, I was privileged to get a good education, and like many girls are not. Like India is like this, it's more of a patriarchal society which focuses on, men getting the education, men getting into that field of tech. In fact, if you think about a typical employee in the field of tech, it's going to be like something of an Indian man. So that's kind of the society in India. It's a patriarchal society which pushes men into these fields, while women are, said to have the traditional gender roles in the country as well. So that's kind of the mentality that doesn't really let women pursue this field. So you kind of have to figure it out all by yourself if you're interested and stuff, because there's no outward expose that you get to this field. So that's one of the major issues in India, that the mindset of the people is so patriarchal that women are not able to get into the field. That's one of the issues. And the second issue, like I said, it's mostly dependent on grades, and there's no formal education for tech. It's just you have to pass this class and you'll be and that's it. That's all your life. You have no passion whatsoever. So I feel like these are the two major issues in India. One is the lack of education for females in general, because men are forced to study and they are the one exposed. And then the second is just the lack of passion that many people or many students get in this.
Yeah. Before we do move on, like I do want to ask you, like, I know you haven't been there in a while, but this can go also for everyone after they answer the question. Has it gotten better, or are there organizations now helping maybe with representation or education? I know you haven't been there, I don't know since how long, but
I haven't been to India, but like I know how it is going in the field, because literally all my family is in India. So I think that it has certainly gone better, but it's not because of any organizations that have popped up in particular. Like there's some youth-led organizations like WiTech California. There's also WiTech India. So there's like youth-led organizations. Shout out to WiTech India. So there's definitely youth-led organizations which are helping women get into tech. But the thing is that what I personally feel really happy about is that women are finding their own passion for tech. And like I know this because my father, he's in touch with, he works for this company which also has his headquarters in India. And he tells me about this really talented female coder who assembles PCs, and she just does tech for fun. So I feel like that's really cool that I'm finding women now in India who are doing this as their passion and not just for some superficial things like grades and everything. So yeah, I would say that it has certainly gone better, but we have still a lot of miles to go on.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Bea. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were going to add anything else.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I would say that representation in the tech industry is definitely not the only problem in the Philippines. I agree with Sahar that there's a huge focus on grades, and that's the only standard for success. Well, not the only one, but it's something that a lot of families tend to pressure their children about. Like they care more about success in numbers rather than the children finding their own passion.
Yeah. And
also, so I've only ever attended private schools in the Philippines. One was a private local school and the other one was a private international school. So the systems of education were pretty different, but both still private. So still pretty high quality compared to the typical public school education in the Philippines. Yeah, and in my local private school, we had maybe 7 to 9 classes a day and from 8 in the morning till 4 p.m. So each class was really fast-paced and surface level, so you never really got to understand the subject material in depth because they just wanted to cram as much information as possible so that you could learn them in time for the tests, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I honestly can't say that I remember anything that I learned in like my elementary or middle school science classes because they were just so fast, and you probably only ever learned one general field of science a year or a term.
What was that field?
I've taken several science classes, so I've taken chemistry and biology in middle school. Yeah, but they were like really surface level. Yeah, yeah. A lot of memorization, not a lot of like essay writing where you analyze or understand things. I know that they've changed the education system since I've been there, so it's probably better now. But I think the bigger issue besides like that whole everything that I've just described now is that the Philippines is a developing country, so there's a lot of impoverished and rural areas that lack text accessibility and literacy. And it's not common for public schools to have computer science classes, especially due to the lack of resources. And even if they do have computer science classes, it's very, very, very unlikely that they teach any sort of programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even local private schools, like the ones I attended in middle school and elementary, they do teach programming, but they might only scratch the surface of HTML or CSS. So obviously, more economically privileged students have better tech education. But aside from that, I'd say another issue is that people who want to pursue tech careers tend to work abroad because there's so many high-paying job opportunities that are not available in the Philippines. And this is the case for many industries in the Philippines, not just tech. Yeah. So if you think about it, if people with more specialized work skills tend to leave the Philippines, then that means the Philippines' own industries can't improve or flourish as well as it could. Because the Philippines definitely has a lot of people with talent and skill, but they probably can't reach their full potential if their education just isn't enough. Like, it's not challenging enough for them, it's not helping them develop as well as they could. Or the people who do have good education and good skills, they leave. So yeah, I think the lack of high quality tech education, and two, brain drain are really big problems that the Philippines faces aside from representation in the tech industry.
It's very interesting. And Stephanie, same thing. I mean, you could speak for the Bay, the US.
Definitely. So I know that I bring a different perspective here since I'm born and raised in the Bay Area and there are lots of tech opportunities around here. Growing up, I think STEM really has been a big part of my life. In addition, everyone and their mothers around here is a software engineer, so it's not really uncommon for people to do computer science. I think our AP computer science class has at least 7 or 8 periods with 30 people per period, so it's very popular here. However, the issue that I notice is really similar to what Bea talked about is that people with in lower income areas don't have as much tech access. Even in the Bay Area, there's areas such as East Palo Alto and Oakland that don't have the same opportunities as we have in the Silicon Valley. And sometimes everyone lumps the Bay Area as we have a lot of tech, we have a lot of privilege here. But in doing so, we overlook the areas that don't have as much access, and then thus they don't get as much attention. There's also great disparities all throughout the United States. I was looking through different schools, looking for APCS teachers we could possibly contact to advertise their programs. And the vast majority of schools I looked at outside of California didn't even have an AP computer science teacher. So there's a lot of disparities in between my state and other states. But of course, for the most part, I'm mostly speaking from a California perspective.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then Stephanie, again, we'll just go ahead and talk about like your advocacy. And I was just going to say you're pretty, plugged into the social media and graphic designing alongside STEM advocacy. But how did you figure out like you wanted to pursue learning and advocating for both? Because like Bea said, she got into, designing and basically the game aspect. So I was like I'm trying to understand like how did you connect the graphic and designing with tech?
Definitely. So growing up, I've always had a sort of eye for design, whether it be through fashion, makeup, or arts and crafts. I joined my first nonprofit organization my sophomore year of high school, and I decided to do some social media posts for them. And that's where my love of graphic design came in. My favorite part about graphic design, mostly on Canva, is the fact that I don't need to be able to draw or paint. I can just drag and drop things and make them look really nice. And I really like that. So that's one way I can combine art and tech, is that the very technology I use is how I do graphic design. And I also like treating graphic design more of a hobby as anything, because it's an outlet for me to be really creative. When it comes to programming, there's opportunities for creativity, such as when you're building a game or a website, but it's just really hard. I find that graphic design is a lot more accessible, and that's why I love making it part of my work, so that I can still be creative while working on some more logistical stuff like running an event.
Okay. And then also tell us about, so I actually was like, I looked at your profile and you were actually part of 2 organizations. So, you can go ahead and maybe tell us about Ad Astra Youth and Superposition. Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what would be like the difference between the 2? Because they do kind of correlate, but there are, some differences. And maybe also your role in both organizations.
Yeah, sure. So I can start by introducing those organizations. Superposition is an international nonprofit working to bridge a gender gap in STEM through chapters, mentorship, and programs. Our programs include having 77 international chapters, the Bay Area's largest all-women and non-binary hackathon, which is coming up soon. So lots of amazing events just like that. And then Ad Astra Youth is kind of my extension of that. It was kind of a progression, because as I was talking to students over the summer, I was having plenty of coffee chats. A lot of students were coming to me for leadership advice. They wanted to create social impact, but they didn't know where to start. So through these 30-minute consulting and advising sessions, I discovered a solution to an unmet need. And that's where Ad Astra came in. So Ad Astra is an organization that empowers youth leaders through pro bono consultations and mentorship. We help out with areas such as marketing, operations, branding, etc. And so far, we've served 105 initiatives. So they're fairly distinct, as in Superposition advocates for women in STEM, whereas Ad Astra Youth helps leaders start up their own initiatives. I recognize that there's so many societal issues out there beyond just the gender gap in STEM. And though I can't work to solve all of them, I want to give others the tools they need to start.
For sure. And then how did you guys start? Like, what's the background of the people involved and just how both organizations maybe came about?
I can start with Superposition. So I didn't actually found Superposition, though a lot of people think I did. It was started in 2016 by Arita Wong. She had just attended the Girls Who Code program at Twitter headquarters, and she realized that there need to be more programs to get more women involved in tech. So she started up Superposition. At the very beginning, we were just a hackathon, and we ended up becoming the Bay Area's largest all-women and non-binary hackathon that year. And this year, we're actually on our 5th iteration of the hackathon. As for Ad Astra Youth, that started in spring and summer of last year, mostly during the pandemic. It started with a series of coffee chats that I turned into a more formalized system where people can sign up and let me know their needs. Ad Astra currently has 2 consultants, which is me and my co-executive director, and so far we've served around 105 organizations.
That's cool. And then Bea and Sahar, tell us about your WiTech origin story. How did you guys get involved?
Okay, so Bea can tell you she's like an old member of WiTech. But for me, I'm kind of new because I'm all affiliated with WiTech California, and WiTech California is a relatively new chapter. So I just learned about WiTech. Like I said, I taught this web development classes with Meha, and then I started following Meha on Instagram, and then we kind of became friends. And then I saw it on her stories, and I was immediately drawn to WiTech because as a girl in STEM, being an international student and everything, I was immediately drawn to WiTech because it was an organization which could help me spread my tech for love and my love for tech with other girls and actually, help them. So this is why I was immediately drawn to WiTech. So I DM'd Meha and I'm like, dude, what is this? I want to know more. How can I be a part of this? So
Harry just swipes up on the DM all the time.
Yeah, I just DM'd Meha and she's like, we'll be releasing our officer applications soon, so you should maybe look out for them. And then I started following WiTech. I learned more about WiTech. Then I saw the WiTech main page, and then I saw how much Audrey has done and how many chapters and how big of an organization it really is, especially in Manila. So I got into it, and then when the officer applications came out, I just signed up for them immediately, and here we are.
That's cool. Bea?
Yeah, so I already mentioned some of my origin story a while ago. It's not that extravagant because, as I said, I really didn't have much interest in conventional STEM until after I joined WiTech. But maybe I can talk a bit about how I met Audrey because, as I said, if I didn't know her, I probably wouldn't have joined WiTech.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that wouldn't.
Yeah, so I met Audrey at a Model United Nations debate conference hosted by her high school in the Philippines. And we were both...
Which high school in the Philippines, by the way?
Her high school was British School Manila, and my school was Brent International School Manila.
Wow.
Our schools
I know these schools.
Yeah. But my first time meeting Audrey was at this conference. Yeah. So we were both student officers at this conference, so we interacted a lot. So that's how we first became friends. And much later after the conference, she posted on Instagram that she was looking for new people to join WiTech, including somebody to make social media graphics for her organization. And as somebody who's artistic, I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to use my creative skills for a good cause. So again, I didn't really have any intention about promoting, well, not to say that I didn't want to promote the advocacy, obviously that's not what I mean, but like that I wasn't drawn to the position because of the tech advocacy. It's because I really just wanted to create art for a good cause. Yeah. But then after joining WiTech, that's when I really got to understand why their advocacy is so important. Yeah, and so I joined WiTech in 2018 as just a general member who creates social media graphics. And yeah, my origin story for WiTech California is that I simply wanted to continue supporting WiTech even in college when I moved to California. Yeah, so I was actually the vice president of WiTech Manila's marketing team's creatives department in 2019, and I was already in California for college by then. But because WiTech was still based in Manila, navigating the time zone difference while I was in California was really tricky. Yeah. So that's probably where my really, really bad sleep schedule began. Yeah, like Josh and Sahar know that I'm in a group chat at really odd hours of the night, and this is probably when it started. Yeah. So rather than continuing to volunteer for WiTech Manila, I helped establish a California chapter for WiTech with our executive director, Meha. And so yeah, now I'm WiTech California's marketing director.
There we go. And then I found this actually pretty dope. Superposition actually featured Audrey, right? Audrey Pett. And how did you guys connect actually, Stephanie? Like how did you and Audrey, or maybe the organization, how did they hear about Audrey, and what was the conference? Because like there was a conference that she attended to, and what was that about? What are a few things that you guys talked about in that conference?
I've known about Audrey for around a year now. I saw her a lot doing Instagram takeovers on other student organizations, and I thought she was such an inspiration, mostly because she was a woman in tech who was advocating for the same cause as me, and also someone who looked like me and I could relate to. She's only 2 years older than me, so she kind of felt like an older sister figure. So I reached out to her and I wanted her to do a workshop with Superposition, which she agreed to. And then after that, she's been a continuous supporter. For example, when we were launching our chapter program in the summer of last year, we actually got on a call with her to ask how WiTech's chapter program worked. And thanks to her, we were able to receive a lot of guidance and a really great model to start our own chapter program on. So we really wouldn't be this large and expansive without her. So when we were hosting our Women Empowerment Conference, which is called the Empowerment Conference, it was in January of this year, so just a couple of months ago. We thought she'd be a perfect fit for our youth activist panel because she's made so many amazing strides advocating for women in tech, and she's also been featured on the UN and ASHAN, so it was just such an awesome opportunity for us to collaborate and help inspire audiences.
That's really cool. And then you guys already talked about your organizations. Bea kind of alluded to this, but the next question would be like, what are your roles specifically in your organizations, and what do you guys do?
Okay, so we have our cute little backgrounds that Bea made of our roles. So as you can see, I'm the operations director for WiTech California, and what I basically do is make sure events happen. So if there's like an event we have, I kind of plan the entire event and then generate timelines for that, and then coordinate with the entire team, and kind of have a checklist that all the stuff is being done on this time so that we can have a successful event. So what I basically started doing, how I do it is, okay, so I kind of took the lazy approach here, and I developed this one code which will help me keep track of all the events and kind of, generate a timeline for me based on experience, like how much time I take to do a task. If it takes like 4 or 5 hours, then it will have it in its database that this task takes 4 or 5 hours, and based on that, it will like generate a timeline for the entire event. So right now, if we have an event, then I just plug in the tasks and my code does the entire work for me. So this is kind of taking the lazy approach here, but
that's so cool. That's so efficient though. Why not?
It works. Exactly. So that's it. That's how I do it. So this is exactly what my position at WiTech is, and I'm so glad that I can actually contribute by using some of my more coding and technical skills, and also helping it for a good cause. So
honestly, I think Sahar is underselling herself, because we wouldn't have some of our speakers without her. She's the one who coordinates with them as well, because our workshops and our podcasts would be nothing without our guest speakers, so she's also responsible for that as well. Yeah, but about me, so as I mentioned a while ago, I originally joined WiTech in 2018 as a member of the marketing team's creatives department, and in 2019, I became the vice president of that department. But I chose to pursue a higher leadership position, like being the current marketing director of WiTech California, rather than just being a general member who makes things, so that it can go beyond just using art for project and research promotion. I wanted to more meaningfully help amplify the voices of women in tech and help youth develop skills to flourish in the tech industry. So aside from creating social media graphics, I actually go beyond what my title says I do, because I also help organize events and host workshops for WiTech California.
Mm-hmm.
As for my role in Superposition, I start off as an operations coordinator for Superposition 3. So it's basically figuring out the backbone of our hackathon, which was our main program at the time. And that would be coordinating with speakers to see when they would come, getting food, swag, and all of that. And I was planning on going for director of operations the following year, but thankfully the lead director promoted me to her position as she was graduating. So I now serve as the lead director of Superposition, and my roles are extremely varied. I have a little bit of a role on every single team. I like being extremely involved, though it's not necessarily the best for my schedule. So my main roles right now are involving managing our social media, marketing our events, helping track speakers, and overall just managing the team. I step in most where we don't have as much support, which is on the graphic design and social media front, but I'm willing to fill in anywhere as necessary in case our team members are unable to fulfill the tasks.
That's pretty cool. Man, you guys do it all, basically. And then also for like both organizations, have you guys held any special events? And what type of events? I mean, you guys already alluded to this too, but maybe talk about some of your favorite events that maybe your organizations hold.
So California is a relatively new chapter, so we haven't had as many events, but we surely did have some really cool events. And the first one started off with a WeTalk, which we had with Katie. She's a systems engineer, and she has this platform called Glam Techie Plug, and she talks about she makes content promoting tech and some of these really cool tech tidbits, as I like to call them, to help other people. And her platform is based on uplifting minority people in the field of tech. So Josh and I had this conversation with Katie, which was absolutely amazing. She has an amazing personality, and it was so fun talking to her. So that was the first WeTalk. And then our second major event was our first workshop, which was based on inequalities in the field of technology. And we had 2 guest speakers for that workshop. So we discussed these inequalities based on different facets of one person's identity and its representation in tech. So we had our first guest speaker, Kadesha, and she also has this amazing platform called It's That Lady Dev, and she's a front-end software engineer, and she does this really cool JavaScript tidbits on her page as well. So we talked with Kadesha about all the stuff that she has done, and she talked about her representation as a queer woman of color, as a Black woman who's in the field of tech, and she said that you don't see representation for queer and Black women in the field of tech. So we talked about that facet of her identity, and then we also talked with Sarah Ather. She has this platform which is Muslim Women in Tech, which is dedicated to amplifying Muslim advocacy in the field of tech. And we talked about how Muslim representation in tech works, and are people insensitive to the beliefs that Muslim people have when it comes to the field of tech. So we had this workshop where we discussed all these different facets of a person's identity in the field of tech. And our biggest priority, which we are going to do, our event, which is the WiTCon, and we will be talking about inequalities in the field of tech in that WiTCon, and also doing some sort of little bit of coding bootcamp / hackathon of some kind, or a coding competition of some kind, where we'll be giving a problem solving. So we're basing it on how the WiTech Manila branch did its WiTCon. Yeah. And so we're looking forward to the WiTCon, and keep your eyes peeled. It's good to be here.
And then when WiTech isn't doing a lot of events, I mean, they're still posting on Instagram, and you guys do post research bits. So maybe Bea can talk about that, why post the research, and what are you guys trying to get out of the research that you guys post? Yeah,
so Sahar went over a lot of the events, so I can talk about things that we do when we're not doing big events.
Yeah,
we originally posted features of women in tech called Tech Girls Tuesdays, but now we're doing Tech Startup Thursdays, where we introduce specifically tech startup founders because it's currently Women History Month. And in both, we not only talk about those women in tech, but also what they've accomplished and how it's impacting the future. And other sorts of research tidbits that we do are, I know that we did one about the female representation in tech, or the lack thereof. And we also talked about machine learning and some introduction to different programming languages. And the reason why we do that is because WiTech's humble beginning was that it was just Audrey's blog where she interviewed women in tech. And she posted their stories on her blog to hopefully to inspire other people, because when she was starting out with coding, she had a hard time finding role models, so she wanted to amplify women's voices, and we want to do the same thing, keep that momentum going of not just promoting tech opportunities and tech education, but also helping women and youth feel represented in tech. Because personally, I feel like if you can see somebody else doing what you dream of doing, you realize that dream is not impossible. Yeah, which is why representation is really important, and we feature these women in tech stories on our page, and also post really easily digestible tidbits about tech and tech representation.
Sure. And Stephanie?
Superposition is primarily event-based. So for our first 4 years, we were known as the Bay Area's largest all-women and non-binary hackathon. So naturally, every single year we were planning for a hackathon. But after our fourth iteration, I realized that if we really were to bridge the gender gap in STEM, it could not be done overnight or over 24 hours. So I wanted us to do more. Our first project outside of our hackathons was starting in the pandemic, when we had a lot of workshops dedicated to career building and learning more STEM, such as personal branding or intro to AI. I really loved all those events, and so far we've had around 40 workshops about that. We also decided to pilot a new type of large event just in January, which I already talked about, the Empowerment Conference. We wanted to have a women empowerment conference versus just a hackathon because we could reach a lot more people. Another reason was because many of the people we were attracting to our hackathon were already interested in STEM. But to bridge a gender gap in STEM, we need to introduce more girls. So we thought that by hosting a conference that appealed to everyone, we could bring more people in that could potentially be impacted by our hackathon and STEM events. My favorite workshop of that event by far was our launching a business workshop with Jade Dharmawangsa. She's a YouTuber with 380,000 YouTube subscribers, and I remember catching onto her videos a year ago, and she really felt like an older sister figure. So when I actually got to moderate a Q&A with her for 30 minutes and actually talk to her over a Zoom call, it was incredibly surreal. But at the same time, I was so panicked about getting all the questions in that I didn't process that, oh my God, I'm talking to a celebrity. So that was an awesome experience. Though I was so afraid of saying something dumb and embarrassing myself, it still went okay.
That's so cool, though. And then, for both of you guys, why do you guys believe, what WiTech, Superposition, your organization, why is it so important, now more than ever for your organizations to, be here and do what they're doing, especially for our generation, So go ahead.
Yeah, so I can start off with that. So especially now that so many of us are dependent on tech for work, school, and daily living, technology is an integral part of our daily lives. But unfortunately, this is not the case for everyone. Some people, especially in impoverished areas, have never used or even seen a computer before. And this is not just limited to developing countries like the Philippines, but also, as Stephanie mentioned, even less economically privileged areas in California, where the Bay Area is, or have less access and literacy to tech. And so not everyone has access to tech, and even more so access to tech education. So in a world that's becoming increasingly digitized, I think it's really important that we don't leave these people behind. Yeah, and so even California, which is known for being technologically innovative, can benefit from WiTech's outreach, because women and youth in California with little or no tech exposure and education are left out of the loop. And also, women who do have access to tech industry opportunities have difficulty acquiring leadership positions and retaining their jobs in the male-dominated field, which is something that Kadesha and Sarah mentioned in our first workshop, that it's something that I feel like I already knew, but when they mentioned it again, it really hammered it into my head, oh right, this is a thing. We can't just focus on introducing women and youth to them, but we also have to help them stay. And that's probably not something we as youth can do, but it's definitely something that we can bring attention to, so that people who actually are in the industry can do something about it. Yeah, and so that's why WiTech California and WiTech as a whole aim to bridge the digital divide that hinders youth and adults alike from participating in the wonders of tech. And WiTech does this not only by introducing youth, especially young girls, to the myriad of opportunities in tech, but also by teaching them the necessary skills to take part in the wonders of being in a technologically advancing world.
Go ahead. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So I think what Bea talked about was so true. We not only need to get more girls in tech, but we also need to make sure they stay there. One misconception I've seen is that because the gender gap in tech is slowly being bridged, people don't think we need organizations such as Superposition or WiTech. In fact, I once got on a 3-hour-long Discord debate with someone from my school who was dissing all female hackathons for being sexist. And he literally said, if I start an all-male hackathon, you would lose your shit. You can totally bleep that out later if you would like to. But I was so shocked, because I kind of take it for granted that everyone supports bridging the gender gap in STEM, because who doesn't support gender equality? But at the same time, when we see more programs rising up to empower women in STEM, guys who are already a majority in tech feel like they're at a disadvantage. And that's why I think we need to have these programs, because so long as there are people who don't think that women should get these special support or shouldn't be helped out in the tech field, we're going to see more and more women leaving because they're being discouraged by the vastly male-dominated culture. So I think that's why we need to continue pushing to not only get girls in STEM, but also make sure that they stay there. Because once you're in tech, there's still so many barriers that you have to face, such as getting promotions, being taken seriously, and even more.
Exactly. And you already alluded to this, Stephanie. This question is kind of like in the realm of that, where you said you were interviewing someone that had like a bunch of followers, and you kind of felt like, you know, you're like, oh, I hope you. So the next question is actually talking about imposter syndrome. I get it sometimes, especially when I'm interviewing someone, like, you know, when I'm like, why am I interviewing this person? Why am I talking to this person? Like, but how do you guys kind of deal with imposter syndrome? I mean, I know it's just something that you get rid of, but there is a way you can handle it.
So for imposter syndrome, it acted up for me in the form of the fact that I am an international student here. I'm fairly new to California, and like it started acting up when I wanted to fit in so bad with the people. Like I mean, there's Indians here, right? You can say it, like the majority of Bay Area is Asians, right? But the thing is that Asians who are born and they live here, they're kind of having a totally different cultural perspective than from someone who grew up in parts of India, like who has seen, like it's totally different. It's not the same thing. So I felt like definitely I felt like I did not belong, which is the definition of imposter syndrome. And it is true for many international students. Imposter syndrome takes place in the form where they feel like they do not belong, because they literally do not belong in the place. Like they feel like they do not belong because there's such a huge cultural shift as it's such a major aspect of their life when they just face this huge cultural shift and they get into universities and colleges, and it's really scary at times when you feel like everyone knows what is going on in these universities. Like Bea mentioned, like when she moved, it was like everyone knew what was going on, and then it's kind of hard for people to catch up on who are from other countries or who have just moved to California. So I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons for imposter syndrome for me, as well as other international students. So I will not say it's something that just goes away. Like it does not. You'll feel people like you'll feel imposter syndrome at almost any point in your life. Like when I met our guest speakers and I was talking with Katie and Kadesha, and I was like, dude, these are such great programmers. They know so much about software engineering, and I've been only coding for like 9 months. I'll never be up to their level. So it takes play. I mean, you can't just get rid of imposter syndrome, but what really helps me sometimes is just focusing on myself. Like I know advocacy is important, and I get it is important, but the thing is that sometimes just, you know, taking a break and just focusing on yourself and your own mental health, and just reminding yourself of why you started this in the first place can really help with imposter syndrome. For me, it's like getting a workout and going to the gym daily. For some people, it might be as simple as taking a walk to clear your head and really think about why you are doing this. And once you feel like you have accomplished that thing, and once you feel like yes you belong here and you have accomplished so much, then I feel like it kind of diminishes. It's gonna come back, but it makes it easier once you start focusing on yourself and your own mental health.
I like that.
Yeah, so I think the biggest way I feel imposter syndrome as a WiTech member is that, as I mentioned a while ago, I don't even want to pursue a conventional STEM career. And as much as I find science interesting, I never really wanted to work in science, much less engineering or math, because it was really intimidating to me. And as somebody who is naturally artistic, it feels kind of contradictory. They're not opposites, but they are very different. So it's not something that I really ever grasped easily. So being surrounded by people who are so passionate about STEM makes me feel really out of place, like passionate about working in STEM, because I too am passionate about STEM advocacies. Because especially when I was part of WiTech Manila, so many of the members went to some of the best science high schools in the Philippines. And so, yeah, I'm really not over this kind of imposter syndrome, because obviously working for a STEM organization means that I'll be surrounded by people who love STEM and are passionate.
Yeah, we're in the same position.
Yeah.
I'm literally learning as I'm going. Like, okay.
Yeah, me too. And I know that I'll probably never be anywhere near as great as Sahar at programming, for example, much less anybody like Sarah or Katie or Kadesha. But that doesn't mean I ever want to stop supporting WiTech, because something that all of WiTech's members have in common is that we're all passionate about educating, inspiring, and empowering youth and women to break gender barriers and make a difference in tech. but we all just have different means of fulfilling that same mission. For me, it's creating graphics artistically and creatively, and for Josh, it's interviewing people and reaching out to others so that more people know about us. And for Sahar, it's making workshops and events so that people actually learn things. Yeah. So my advice for those facing imposter syndrome is to focus on your unique individual capabilities and how you can use these to fulfill the advocacies you're passionate about in your own special way. And also, as Sahar mentioned, focusing on why you began advocating for that cause that you're really passionate about, or why you began studying that field that you're really passionate about working in the future, because your own talents, skills, and efforts are things that nobody else but you can offer.
Wow, I feel like I just listened to a TED Talk. That was beautiful.
I'm like,
yes, that's right. Yeah, I experienced a lot of imposter syndrome as well as a lead director of superposition. As I mentioned earlier, I was going for director of operations, but I got directly promoted to lead director, even though there were a couple of other team directors, such as our director of sponsorship or outreach at the time, who could have been promoted in my place. And at first I was like, why me? Like, I attended like 2 hackathons. I could barely code. I was like, I even double checked the messenger text to make sure she addressed the right person. I was like, that does it. That says Stephanie, right? So at first, I was really unsure of why I got the position, but then I took a step back and thought about it. And I think it's definitely because of my work ethic and dedication. Everything else, such as knowledge, like how to run a hackathon, that can be acquired. But work ethics is something you need to develop over time. So throughout the hackathon organizing process, I made sure to not be afraid of admitting when I needed help. And my team member was extremely receptive to that. I said, I don't know how to make a dev post, which is the platform we host our hackathons on. And while I was afraid that others would judge me, they really didn't, because I was able to show up in other ways. I was able to help steer the direction of our hackathon to make it a success, even if I didn't know everything. So my advice is to not be afraid to admit when you don't know something, so long as you're willing to learn.
No, exactly. I'm going to write that down. Thank you. And this is just a fun one, before we get, to the tail end of the interview. Thanks so much, guys, by the way, for, sticking through the whole thing. It's been a good time. And, obviously I've learned a lot. And then, a fun question, what do you guys hope to pursue in the future? What would you, not everyone knows what they want, but people know a little bit of what they feel like they want, So what would be some, I don't know, ideas?
So for my future, that's a good question, actually. See, my dad wants me to pursue data science, and I'm really happy with data science. That's 2 of my strongest suits, maths and computer science. So I really want to make him proud and pursue data science. But for me, it's overly ambitious, far-fetched. Maybe.
Hey, no, go ahead. No.
Maybe, so my original plan is to successfully major in physics, math, and computer science all together. So assuming that I do accomplish that, I really want to be at NASA, because physics and math are such a big part of my life. And just because I found computer science, I find hard to drop that passion. So I really want to be that's my final destination, because you see, I have so many inspirations of women who are at NASA, Kalpana Chawla. She was the first Indian woman to ever go to space. She's one of my biggest inspiration. So I feel like maybe if I can contribute or even be a fraction as good as these people are, I feel like I could contribute a lot into the STEM field. And then Swati Mohan, she was the lead speaker for the Perseverance Mars rover. So I feel like I just want to be a fraction of as good as these women are, because they are just such huge inspirations for me. So yeah, I feel like that's gonna be one of my future plans if I can accomplish that. So
we'll start a campaign called Get Sahar to Space 2024. Yeah, go ahead, Bea.
Okay. Career-wise, I hopefully want to work as a digital cartoon animator or game designer or UX UI designer in the future. But the biggest goal is to become an animator. That's been my lifelong dream, to do something that involves drawing, because I absolutely love cartoons and even game animation. Yeah. But to be honest, I really only ever considered game design or UX UI as an alternative recently, because I've been taking some programming and game classes in college. And I also never realized how fun it was to make my code come to life, like as Stephanie described. Like, it makes me feel like I can do anything whenever my code works, especially after hours and hours and hours of debugging. And as somebody who also does the visually pleasing side of making games or programs, that also, it adds to the factor, like, when you see a terminal game run for the first time, it's not as exciting because it's just letters and numbers and lines and dots. But when you add graphics to it, it feels like a whole other experience, because you could technically sell something like that. It probably won't make a lot of money because it's just something simple, but still, the fact that it has all of the components that a real working sellable game has, it makes me feel like I can do anything. Yeah, so really, I'll be satisfied as long as my future career can combine my love for art and technology. Yeah.
For me, in the short term, I'm looking to become a product manager. So I come from a family of software engineers, but I don't entirely want to do software engineering. You know, the idea of coding for 6 to 8 hours a day and being on call to solve bugs and stuff, not my jam. But I think I'm a lot better with my creative and business side, and that's the side that I tap into when I'm running Superposition. I love seeing all the bits and pieces come together, like figuring out an event or figuring out how to market something. I think I'm a lot more creative in that respect, and product management is perfect for that because it's a blend of tech, business, and design, which is everything I'm really passionate about. In the far distant future, maybe one day I'll become a social entrepreneur. It's kind of related to my work here at Superposition. I think it's so important to use these powerful tools such as business and technology to challenge social issues. Though I don't entirely know which issue I want to challenge in the future with a social enterprise, I think that's a fantastic way to not only leave my mark in the world, but gain a lot of personal gratification.
Oh, man, strong. I like it. That's all really cool. And, you know, Sahar always laughs at me when I say this. We're already at this point, but how can people authentically support your organizations? Obviously, we'll drop all the information. Cray will do his stuff, but how can people authentically support you guys?
Yeah. So wait, is this the part where we also shout out? Do I say this?
Oh, you do whatever you want. Yeah, this is the plug-in, shout out, whatever.
Yeah. So WiTech California currently only has 5 members, including me, Sahar, Josh, Meha, and Stella. So each of us plays a really important role in making WiTech California possible. So shout out to all of us. And the biggest shout out of them all definitely goes to Audrey, because without her, we wouldn't have WiTech. And it is thanks to her that so many youth and women have found role models in STEM, have developed new STEM skills, and have become inspired to pursue STEM careers. So y'all are welcome to support WiTech California on Instagram and Facebook at WiTech.California. And you can also support WiTech, like the whole organization, at WiTech.org on Instagram and Facebook. And we also have a blog at wi-tech.org, where you can read interviews with women in tech and articles about various STEM topics. And you can authentically support WiTech California by attending our events, like our upcoming WitCon, and reading our research, and most importantly, supporting the women in tech we celebrate.
Oh. Stephanie?
I can talk about Superposition. So the best ways to get involved right now are to get involved with our programs. Our mentorship program for high school and college students, which is called Amplify, is currently taking registration for both mentors and mentees. We are also hosting Superposition 5, our 5th iteration of our hackathon. That's coming up April 9th through 11th, so it's pretty soon. And another great way to take the leadership initiative and get involved with Superposition is by opening a chapter in your community. Currently, we have a family of 77 chapters, and it's only growing from there, so it's extremely exciting. As for Ad Astra Youth, the best way to get involved is to schedule a consultation with us. You can find all the information about that on our Instagram at Ad Astra Youth. I also realized that I want to plug Superposition social media pretty quickly. Our Instagram's at SuperpositionFC, and our website is superposition.tech.
There we go, guys. Authentically support. I'll see you guys in one of those, conferences, meetings, consultations. I better be seeing you guys there. But thank you, Sahar, Bea, and Stephanie for joining. It was really dope, just getting to talk and seeing, different sides. It's always pretty cool. And obviously, thanks, Cray, for producing this. I know you're staying quiet, but thanks, Cray. And then, before we leave, do you guys have anything you want to say? Messages, final messages, remarks? Could be anything before we go.
On a last note, I would say that to authentically support our organization, like Bea said, definitely attend our events and everything. But for the most part, interact with WiTech. Because we have just started, we want to know what you guys want us to print. Like, we are a social media, we are a nonprofit based on social media as of now, right? So we want to know what you guys want to see as our social media posts, or like what kind of events do you want. So I want everyone to interact with WiTech more, and we're nice people, okay? Just shoot us a DM. Yeah, just shoot us a DM at any time and tell us what you want. Anything works, like you can have a discussion with any of us in the field of tech. You can tell us what you want. Any guest speaker recommendations if you want to see a certain person being hosted on our platform, and anything, like literally anything you want, like constructive criticisms, feedbacks, anything. So I would say for us, since we're kind of a small chapter as of now, I would say that interaction with us and just telling us what you want to see as for WiTech would be one of the ways to authentically support this organization. So you can also like comment down on our posts of what we can do better and make future suggestions and everything. So I feel like that's a way to authentically support our organization.
For sure. Stephanie, any last words?
Yeah, so of course, support superposition too. We always need more allies for women in tech. And I also want to end with a sentiment, kind of borrowing what Audrey said in our empowerment conference panel, is that don't wait for adults to create the change you want to see in the world. This is probably something that's mostly directed towards youth. Oftentimes we feel like we don't have the resources or the capability to create change, but here we are talking with a bunch of amazing change makers in our communities, and we're not even fully adults yet. So to anybody listening, you are capable of creating change so long as you believe in yourself.
That's dope. Bea, anything, Bea? I'll give you the chance.
Well, I'll just say that even just listening to a podcast like this hopefully will inspire people to pursue STEM careers or be passionate about advocating for tech literacy and accessibility, because as I said a while ago, tech is an integral part of our lives, but unfortunately that's not the case for everybody. And it would be really nice if we could all learn about the technology we use. So yeah, support organizations like WiTech, Ad Astra Youth, and Superposition so that we can continue fulfilling the missions that we are passionate about.
That's dope. And there you have it, guys. Say less, simple like that. And thank you guys for, joining. Thanks, Tiana and her organization for hosting and letting us, all come on and just speak. And with that being said, that's it, guys. I don't have anything else. You guys are free. Thanks.